Always nice to start with a round of applause. Welcome,
Absolutely.
welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody out there in Radioland. My name is Martin McKenna, and
I am Neil Farmand. How you doing, everybody? Welcome.
welcome. And we're delighted to be on the Stream Alive Unmute Yourself show. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about going live on LinkedIn and a new training course that myself and Neil have put together, because going live on LinkedIn is quite easy, but it's not particularly obvious. But before we sort of go into that, we ought to just give a little bit of an introduction to myself and to Neil, because you may not know us. We're normally live streaming in environments where most people actually know us because we do lots of live streaming, but today it's a little bit different. So why would you bother listening to me talk about going live on LinkedIn? Why would you? So let me give you a little bit of background. Both myself and Neil come from an IT corporate background. Been in IT for a long, long time, so I guess we align with lots of people out there on LinkedIn. I also built up a face-to-face events business, totally using LinkedIn, so no other marketing costs, which was great. So I was able to operate on fairly low margins because LinkedIn's free to advertise on effectively. And the whole business went really, really well using just LinkedIn for all of my communications and promotions, etc., etc. And I would have 300 people in a room on a day and 12 to 15 sponsors and 2 events per annum, and it worked really, really well until COVID appeared. And when COVID appeared, my events business disappeared. So I moved over into live streaming, and Neil is going to tell you his
Yes.
story.
Yeah, so like Martin, 35 years in the IT corporate industry as a network performance consultant, and decided after that time, I've always had an interest in workflows regarding audio and video. And after that period of time, after 35 years, I decided I'd like to start doing more work with people online doing video production, audio, and so on. So I decided to start my own little sort of business helping people look better on camera with video production, whether it be YouTube, all kinds of different things. So Martin and I met using Ecamm Live, and we've decided, as he said, to create this course. So I had a YouTube channel now for about sort of 6 or 7 years. And over the time, I've practiced and done various different things with cameras and audio and worked out how to do better on YouTube myself, and it's a big learning curve. And here we are. So we now are building up this course, and we've basically been doing live streaming now for over a year and a half, and we've had a number of different tutorial videos on our YouTube channels, respectively, for Ecamm and various other things. So you can check out our YouTube channels there to show what we've been doing over the last few years.
Yeah, and we're live every single week, at least once a week, and quite often 2 or 3 times a week on both LinkedIn and on YouTube. But why video? What makes video so compelling? We do know that at this moment in time, LinkedIn are totally into video. They're absolutely loving it. And some of the facts and figures that you're seeing here are absolutely just the reason why they're jumping in on the whole video thing. So you can, with video, really hit people with a double whammy. So I can be talking on different facts and figures going on here whilst people are watching the video. But we can see from those engagement factors of static versus video that the video posts are way, way, way more noticeable and more engaging than just static posts. So I'd go as far as to say static posts are pretty much a thing of the past, or at least you just want to mix them liberally, but mainly concentrate on video. And I can honestly say that I really wish I'd had video when I was doing my events business, because I'd have been on there straight away interviewing all of my guests that were coming up on the event and giving people a sneak peek of who was coming through, and that would have worked really, really well. Just for encouraging people to come along to the event because they'll have got a sneak peek of everything. So with that, we want to go on to a little bit of a Streamer Live questions for the audience. So if you haven't used Streamer Live before, what you can do is just type into the comments, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or whether you're watching on YouTube or any other platform, you can type into the comments with one word what it is that you do. So we want to know whether you are maybe a solo entrepreneur, or whether you're a trainer or a teacher or a thought leader or a sales professional. Whatever it is you do, type that into the comments and it will pop up on the screen for us.
As you see right here. Here.
And you can see it's all happening.
On my side. It's all happening. There we go. So we've got entrepreneur, got production, marketing. Wow, they're all coming in. So we got as well SaaS, right?
So
people
what we've been able to do,
of IT industry.
Yeah, for those who've not seen Streamer Live before, what it's doing is it's visualizing all of those comments coming in for us, and we've been able to colour match that with our corporate background and style for this forthcoming course. So it's great to see that we've got a good selection of different people coming through for us, because that's what we're exactly expecting to see. So a bit later on we'll talk about who the course is for, but before we get to who the course is for, let's ask the next question, Neil.
Yes, let's move on. Oops, there we go. So the next question is, how long have you had a LinkedIn account?
So we'll wait and see what the answers are to how long have you had a LinkedIn account. But I can tell you, because I went and had a look, it's a bit of a faff to find out where it is, but I had to Google it first. But I've had a LinkedIn account for 17 years. And I think I was fairly early on in the whole LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn type of business. 15 years plus. Let's see what else is coming in, because I can see some of the comments coming in. And it looks like we've got quite a few people with different levels of LinkedIn experience. And I see Saeed's comments come in here. He's very specific. He said 11 years this May. See, I didn't go into that much detail. But what that really says to me is, and I've indicated this already to some degree, is that everybody's sitting there on LinkedIn and you've got a free resource for advertising, not just static advertising, but for video advertising. And if you go on LinkedIn Live, you can also create yourself a whole bunch of material that you can repurpose and then cut into little slithers of mini advertisements for yourself on LinkedIn. And it really is totally free. So think about that, everybody. If you've been on LinkedIn for 15 years, are you using it to your advantage? A free resource. Next question.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to the next question. Go ahead, Martin. The next question is...
So I mentioned previously you can go on live on LinkedIn. We've been doing it since pretty much you could go live on LinkedIn. There used to be a very complicated process where you had to fill in various forms, send them to LinkedIn. They would then decide when or if you were going to be allowed to go live on LinkedIn. So there was some sort of weird process, and I think that put a whole lot of people off. But I wonder whether that is what's putting you off. Is it the whole process of trying to get onto being approved for LinkedIn Live? Is it because you don't understand the technical steps for going live on LinkedIn? Is it because you just don't want to go live on LinkedIn? Or is it because you feel that your camera presence is not up to standard for going live on LinkedIn? So I'm interested to know if it's the technical aspects or the cameras. Just type in the comments again and we're going to see what people are saying, and hopefully it aligns with what we're putting in the training course. We believe it does, because it is a little obtuse what you need to do to go live on LinkedIn. And what we're doing today is probably a few steps higher than just going live on LinkedIn, because we are adding in all sorts of movements of slides in the background and things like that. So we're calling our training course level 1 go live on LinkedIn, but we're also going to be going to 2, 3, 4, 5 as well, which will be bringing in additional tools and additional methods of playing about on the screen on LinkedIn.
It's interesting. We've got Fear coming in here, and we saw another comment just pop in saying time. In other words, nothing. So it's just basically time. Some people
Having
are saying
the time
that's,
to do it.
Yeah, and
I
that
think
might just be the barrier to entry, right? As we spoke around how long it takes people just to get connected, set up, confident, and so on. But obviously, we'll talk about that later.
So we think we can get you actually up and running very quickly. And as part of the course as well, we also actually mention a couple of AI tools that you can use, which will help speed up the process and help you think about some materials and ideas for shows and things like that. So really up to you what you want to be using it for, but technical things and Fear seem to have jumped up today, and Saeed's blaming LinkedIn for something. I'm not quite sure, but something went wrong for him.
Tried to go live today and it failed. So there you go. Well, maybe we can help you and find out what's going on there.
Okay, so LinkedIn Live itself, does that actually create additional engagement? So the obvious answer it was always going to be yes, wasn't it? But if you go live, you get 24 times as many comments on your posts as you would if you just put up a static post. But we believe there is no point in going live unless your cameras, microphones and lighting look good. So we actually are going to take you through all of that as part of the course. And everybody will have their own tastes in terms of backgrounds and lighting and things like that. But we'll take you through what works and show you some different examples of those styles of backgrounds and cameras and things like that. Who's it for? For just about anybody who wants to go live. So anybody who has a business or is involved in a business or wants to perhaps, or maybe they're a recruiter, or maybe they're a real estate agent, or maybe they're in sales, as I mentioned earlier on, and they want to stand out in an otherwise busy environment, or you're a trainer or educator and you've got messages to send across, or you're a thought leader. So really, there's no limit to who this is for. And even if you're thinking about it, nowadays, LinkedIn is your resume, effectively. So you being live on LinkedIn and reaching more people promotes you as well as whatever you're talking about as well. So really, there is no upper or lower limit to who this is actually for. Neil, what will people learn?
So as part of the course, you're going to learn basically camera basics and how to set up your lighting, your camera, your microphone to look as good as you possibly can within your own environment. And I'm going to go through some of those things today as well a little bit. They'll also learn how to actually connect and get connected to LinkedIn Live. I'll talk about that also a little bit later because it's not as easy as you would first imagine, but it's not basically too difficult. There are a few things you have to consider and so on. We'll also be showing you not only how to look good on camera, but basically how to create events on LinkedIn Live, how to start promoting your events. Martin mentioned some of the AI tools to get you over those hurdles and helping you with promotion, and just basically taking you from beginner to doing your first live stream on LinkedIn Live. We'll also be talking about other tools that you can use like Streamer Live, Camo, and various other things that you can use to level up your presentation and so on. But there's no reason why you shouldn't go live on LinkedIn, hopefully after you've looked at the course.
Yeah, and with that, this is the type of training material you can expect to see on the course. So myself and Neil going through slides and taking you through different elements of the course, and then we'll run various quizzes and exercises as part of the course. So what I thought I'd do now is just run you through one of the exercises that we have on the course, and I'm just going to press a button and sit back for 7 minutes and have a glass of water. This is part of the course. So, time for a little exercise. I hope you're up for that. What we wanted to do is to get you to try some of the techniques that we've already shown you in lessons thus far. And in order to do so, I'm going to use an example. And John Bellingham was good enough to pop on the show with myself and Neil, and he was talking about Content Kit. So if you want to talk about Content Kit, John's your man, go find him on LinkedIn. But following the show, John put out a nice post to say how great it was to be on the show, but also saying he'd got a bit of camera envy. So if he's got camera envy, myself and Neil decided, right, we'll get you on for an hour or so and have a look at yourself and your background and see what we can do for you. So here we got John's background when he first came to see us, and I'm going to make a little bit of use of some of the space that John has got on the screen here and bring in some headlines onto his nice bullet board or bulletin board that he's got available to him. So the first thing we noticed is that John's image looks a bit washed out. Now it could be that the ISO settings are wrong in his camera, or he's got a light facing directly at his face, but in fact it turned out it just because he had a window facing him with natural daylights. So we had to sort that out for him. Then we had the rule of thirds, and it was immediately apparent as soon as we saw John that actually he's sitting way too low in the frame. So if I bring on that rule of thirds image, we can see his head should be somewhere within the circle and he's miles off. So we needed to get him to raise his chair or lower his camera to get his camera such that it was at eye level with him and he's sitting much higher in the frame. The other thing that John said to us was, how come it looks like you're looking directly at me? And that's purely because our cameras are all at eye level. John's was sitting on the top of his laptop, so he was always going to be looking down at it. The other thing that jumped out straight away to us, a number of distractions in the background. The first of which, John seemed to be balancing a picture on his head. He also seemed to be doing a bit of an impression of a Greek god because he was trying to hold the world on his shoulder there. So that globe sort of sat for me like Atlas doing his thing with the world on his shoulder. Then he had a vase or vase sitting to one side of him, and that just kind of looked odd. It was at a very funny level and again appeared to be balancing on his shoulder, and what turns out to be a pineapple ornament growing out of his neck as well. So all of those had to go. And finally, the pictures, for me with my OCD, weren't totally aligned. Perfectly spaced, but not properly aligned, which tends to make me think his camera was maybe slightly wonky as well. So you might want to check your camera is level. Good things about the background. We noticed this big plant. A plant is a great thing to put one of those backlights that Neil talks about behind. So we'll add a backlight for John in a minute or two. We then got this little chair in the corner with a couple of pops of colour. I felt that looked quite nice as well. And finally, we've actually got a table sitting behind John. And now it's running straight across the wall at the moment. I don't think we want to do that. It's kind of hidden. So we're going to actually get him to move that and move his camera so that it's pointing slightly into the corner of the room. And we'll come to why we want to do that in a second. The next thing I noticed was there was very little separation between John and his background. The background was a similar colour to John's skin complexion and his shirt. So that is a problem, but we also wanted to add in a light at 45 degrees and sit that behind John, pointing slightly at his background to give some separation. Finally, we wanted to add some depth of field, and in order to do that, we actually got John to move his camera around and point it slightly towards the corner of the room. So we can immediately see we've now got a table at a slight angle, we've got the chair in the corner, and we've got a light behind the plant, and it's all looking much better in terms of layout. Now, rule of thirds applying again. John's nearly got it right, but not quite. So he's not really sitting very central in that image. He wants to shift over a little bit. So John did a lot of playing about to try and get things in the right place. So this is the next version. So here we can see it started to look better. He's also got a different coloured shirt on here as well, which contrasts much better with the background. And he's added in a couple of lights and jazzed them up a little bit. So it's starting to look a lot better. He's also right in the middle of the screen, bang in the screen, but I think his head needs to be a little bit larger in this image. I also note he's got a microphone and he's tilted it away from him slightly. We did that to get rid of pulsives on the actual, when John was speaking, it was a bit so by tilting the microphone away, it looked a lot better. And now look at that for a final image. John's looking 10 times better. The only thing I would say is maybe his camera's a little bit bright on the final image, but he's chosen to change his colours slightly on those colour changing lamps, and it's looking really good. He's gone for a slightly bluer colour behind the tree or the plant, and it shows up the plant a little bit more, and a little bit more orange in the background behind his shoulder there, which contrasts nicely with the sort of pops of colour on the chair. He's also been able to bring in some bullet points and colour coordinate the bullet points even with his shirt and that chair there, and utilise that bit of space that he had behind him rather than these banging into pictures or anything else in the background. So just by a few little tweaks, John has gone from image A, which was very boring, to be honest, a bit flat, to image D, which is much brighter, but not an overly complicated background, but one where he is standing out from the background. He's moved his body up, his eyes are totally in line and in the right place. He's made his head a little bit bigger, so in the image directly above it, he was kind of clipping the top of the image, and then he was a bit small on image number 3, but he's got it totally right there in terms of the size of the image and where he should be on the screen. So what we want you to do is exactly the same thing. Go have a play about and see where you can get to just by moving your cameras around and a bit of the furniture around. John did actually paint his wall, or at least his wife maybe painted the wall, but you may not want to go to that extreme first of all. However, I think in John's case it was really worth it, he says, finishing off the sentence while the video clips a little bit early professionally. So at this point in time, let's welcome on Lux, the co-founder of StreamAlive, who has joined us today. And I think you can probably see where this is already going, can't you, people? So I'm just going to say over to you, Neil.
Thank you very much. Well, yes, we can definitely see where this is going. Now, I'd first of all like to ask everybody in the comments, can you just tell me in one word what is wrong or what you believe is wrong with Lux's image right now? Lux is sitting in his studio, he's chilling out, obviously, and this is typically how he would run his Zoom calls, you know, just in that sort of, you know, stance and where he is. But just put it in the comments, let us know what you think is wrong with this image right now and potentially what could be improved from Lux's perspective. And what we're going to do is we're going to take Lux through a super fast makeover in the style that you would typically see in one of those lovely building programs. But what we're going to try and do first of all is get Lux positioned where he should be in his room. So Martin has kindly put up this grid that we have available. And Lux, if you wouldn't mind just positioning yourself so where your eyes are sort of at the right level, pump up that chair. Nice wall, not a Lux going exactly. It's a lovely wall, lovely bookcase, but we don't see much of Lux. You could also tilt your camera. So there's two things, specifically when you've got a laptop camera, and Lux is using his MacBook Pro camera, and we can talk about cameras and things a little bit later. But already he's looking like he's actually looking at you when you're on your particular Zoom call. So there's a few other people, I think, with comments. They've mentioned too much distraction in the background. Yes, indeed. And there was another couple of comments in mentioning cluttered, not centered. Well, and face is not well lit. So yeah, all the things that Martin showed you in the extract from the course is really what we're seeing here at the moment. So let's try and make a couple of quick and timely improvements to Lux's environment. So I know that Lux has got a couple of lights. Now, like anything else, you don't have to have crazy expensive lights to just get a better image. But what he's doing at the moment is what everybody seems to do when they're in their home studio, is they have their above overhead lights on these. These could be fluorescent lights, these could be spotlights. And typically what they're doing is casting, and I'll draw on my face, they're casting some shadows down over Lux's face, and you getting these sort of weird shadows under the eyes, call them panda eyes. So effectively what you could technically do is turn on some additional lights that are more facing you. So I know that Lux has got a couple of lights that we could ask him to turn on. So if you wouldn't mind turning on one of your little lights, I think, which is to the right of you at the moment, and this is just a small light similar to this that's basically sitting on his monitor. And already you can see there's an improvement casting a shadow on one side of his face, giving a little bit of depth, and already one side of his face is now very well lit. So before we go any further, if I could ask you to turn off your overhead lights, and we can show the people on the stream what kind of a difference that makes as well. So I know you've got a handy dandy remote control to turn off your lights. There it is. That's luxury in itself there. You know, some people have to just go and stand up and switch it off, but there you go. So already we've got the lighting has changed dramatically from a color perspective as well, because obviously having overhead lights in your room are going to give you a very different color temperature and a color cast on you, which might not be very flattering. So, hey Chris, lights on. So Lux has already got another light as well. Now you can repurpose any lights that you may have bought back in the COVID days. People used to buy ring lights. They were always positioned in the wrong place. People would put ring lights here, right in front of your face, and you'd end up getting these really weird looking sort of glow on your lights and on your glasses. And they were really good for doing makeup and things like that, but that's not what we're here for today. So Lux basically has got a ring light available to him that he's going to put off over on this side, which would cast a nice shadow on his face. So if you wouldn't mind turning that on, Lux, that would be fantastic. Connects and interact and be centered. So Lux has turned on the second light. Perfect, thank you very much. And already we've got light here and here. Now, one of the lights is typically classed as a fill light, which is the light that he's just turned on, which is filling up some of the shadows and taking that away from his face. And the main light that you would typically have on you is something called a key light, which would be typically a larger light, little bit more intensity. It could be a softbox light. It could be something with a little bit of diffusion. And all I mean by that is the more diffused the light is, the softer the light, the less shadows and harshness that's being cast across his face. And so already we've got the lights on there. Now, obviously, Lux in his background has got some pictures that we recently found out are stuck to the wall. So what we would typically recommend is that those photographs, either you could put a protective or non-reflective coating on them, which would stop the lights being reflected, or you could even move the lights away. Today, we don't have to worry about that, but that's just common practice whereby if you've got anything that's reflective in your background, either remove it, put some sort of cover over it, just so it's not distracting to the audience. One of the other things we can do is remove some of the clutter. People have mentioned in the chat already that there's quite a bit of clutter going on in the background. So Lux, it's entirely up to you what you would like to remove in the time that we have available to us. I think the lanyards behind you are quite distracting. I mean, it's a great collection, let's be honest. You've been to many, many meetings. But what we'd like to see is really a background that's less distracting. Because at the end of the day, if you're presenting you as your company, if you're a solopreneur, if you're representing your business, and you're doing a presentation or even a pitch, what you want people to focus on is not your lanyard collection behind you. So
yeah, don't put them around your neck. Lux, don't.
No, I mean, you could, if that's a fashion accessory you want to go with, but that's not something.
No, we're not advising that.
We want to do.
Don't move the clutter from behind you to between you and the camera. That's another.
Yeah,
top
that's
tip.
the key thing. So as we did with John, we also moved John into one of the corners, and that's not something for today. But I know that Lux has got an area there where potentially we could sort of move around. The other thing that we would recommend is having something like a practical light or something that would give you a little bit more of something to look at behind. Now, practical lights are incidental lights that basically cast a different color, mix up the background a little bit, like what Martin and I have got already. We've only actually got 4 lights in our entire studio. We've got a key light, a fill light, a little light behind me, and another one that's just basically adding a little bit of color. Now, Lux has kindly purchased an LED light, an RGB LED light, which has got different colors, which is right here. And these are portable lights that you can get on Amazon. We have some links. Even Martin's got one. I've got a little one as well. And these are basic little lights that you can buy on Amazon that are different colors that you can just really dial in your settings. If you don't always have to have a dark background like Martin and I have got, you might want a lighter, more polished background that Lux will have when he gets rid of all of his books and bookcase and things like that. But when you add some of the lighting behind you, you can really add a little bit of color and contrast to that. So Lux, if you wouldn't mind turning that light on to whatever color you like. I think we said a purple is quite nice. And one of the positions you can put that in is behind you, on your bookcase, on the pile of paper, something that would just give you a little bit of color behind there as well. And if you've got lights that you've purchased, and you don't have to spend a fortune on these, a lot of the lights that we recommend have controls where you can basically control the intensity of the lights. You can simply dial those down a little bit to give you a bit more of a mood. But already that's looking a whole lot better just by changing a couple of lighting in his room, changing the camera angle itself. And keep in mind, this is a MacBook camera that we're using here. What we did with John, and we do talk about it in the course, is install some software called Camo Studio. And Camo Studio is basically giving you full control over your camera, whether it be a MacBook camera, a webcam, Logitech Brio, even a DSLR camera if it's connected via a capture card. Any camera that your system sees, and it's available for both Mac and Windows, you can really start to dial in and so on. Now, Lux does have Camo installed. You can run it up if you want, Lux. Just to go through one quick thing that we can say to people. With Camo Studio, and I'll just run it up here as well.
While
So
you're
Camo
running
Studio
that
is
up,
a
Neil,
free... Yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say, while you're running it up, just a quick to one side. If you are buying any of these coloured lights, then maybe go for one that's got a remote control. They've got various buttons on the back of the coloured lights, which makes things incredibly obtuse in terms of how to select different colours and temperatures and things like that. If you just got the remote control, you press a button, it goes green, it goes orange, you press up or down for brightness and it gets brighter, or so on and so forth. And some of them will work with iPhone type apps or phone apps as well. So
Yeah.
a bit easier to get remote controls than to press the four or more black buttons on the back of the light, all of which look the same. And in low light, it can be difficult to see what you're pressing anyway. So yeah, that's just an aside.
Exactly.
Well, I fill in while you both have launched Camo.
No, that's perfect. I mean, I instantly think even without Camo, Lux's image looks great. And Camo can just add a little bit more of a dimension to your image. You can add some very soft spotlight or background blur. I'm not sure if you've got your setup already, Lux, but and we can do this at another event and another time. But effectively, Camo will allow you to change a few settings on your camera to make things look cool. And then obviously you have to have your Zoom camera that we're seeing you in at the moment connected to Camo, because Camo is a virtual camera and sending out your image to there. But we don't have to worry about it right now. But the point is with Camo is that you can adjust the framing, put a nice vignette. You've already switched it over, I see. So you could actually just enable the spotlight feature on the left-hand side if you see the controls on the left with all your camera. You just have to click on the camera control on the top bar, and then you'll get a list of controls on the left-hand side that show up. But if not, it's not a problem. We didn't rehearse this at all, so this is live, and we do go through the entire setup. See, there you go. He's already found the
That's
controls
exactly
and ruined it completely. Well, that's
the
my
Incredible
job.
Hulk setting has been located.
So I'm not sure what setting you've got there, Lux, but that's not one we do recommend as part of the course. But the spotlight feature is quite nice because you can turn that on and it gives you a little bit of it. So similar to the Zoom spotlight, but what John basically added with his is a little bit of background blur. So there's lots of nice, very subtle features that are not going to give you a silly halo effect and things like that. But we do have these features in there. You can also zoom in, as Lux has done. So if your camera isn't positioned correctly and you can't afford to move your Mac or whatever laptop you've got backwards and forwards and you can't position your camera effectively, then one of the things you can do with Camo is basically reframe, resize, change the colors, and really dial in your images. Because the Mac camera and some of the webcams, you simply can't change any of those settings. So Matt's asking the question, what is the app that you're currently talking about? It's called Camo. I think I'll try and
I think Lux
post
has
that in the
found the
chat.
button.
There it is. Now look at that already. And you can turn that down a little bit and wind that down so it's not as
wind
sensitive.
it down a little bit.
But the point is that you can really sort of change that. And what that's doing is giving you a little bit of depth where you don't have a decent lens. You can actually wind that down. And I will just type in the Camo. It's reincubate.com. I will just grab that and put that in the chat. So we'll have a list of these in the chat as well, but let's just reincubate.com. Just make sure we've got that.
So we're going to be taking a few questions from anybody in a minute or two.
Let's do a Q&A.
After we ask another question of everybody in the audience, but we'll do a Q&A in a minute, and then we'll bring Lux back on again, and probably bring him back with Neil, I think, next week to do, maybe version 2 of Studio Makeover.
We'll have a chat.
But
Definitely.
for the moment, we're gonna let Lux go and clean up a bit, move around, play with Camo, and come back in a few minutes, totally different. But we just wanted to ask a question first. So see you in a minute, Lux.
Thank you very much. All right. So yes, our next question is one thing you could improve in your studio. So now you've seen some of the things that you can improve just by moving stuff around, changing lighting, even shifting the camera around. And Saeed did have a very good point. Cleaning your camera lens can make a huge difference. Yes, especially if it's a laptop where you've got, greasy thumbs and stuff over there. Lux is saying clean up his room. Okay, that's one thing, definitely. That goes without saying, considering we've just seen that Lux and now he's cleaning his lens, I can see in Zoom. But there's many things I think that people can do with regards to that positioning of my desk. See, that's another good one, because we spend a lot of time in front of the camera, especially on Zoom calls and things like that. We're living in a world now where we're all connected virtually, and Zoom and Teams and LinkedIn and all these types of systems really are promoting us to sit in front of the camera more and do more pieces to camera and presentations. Getting your desk sorted out, clutter on your desk, positioning of the desk, and making you feel like you actually want to go in and present is really important as well. I know Martin and I have spent quite a bit of time getting our studio environments the way that we want them, where we can just come in, we can start recording, we can start going live and so on. Now, not everybody has that luxury of being able to have a separate room to be able to do their thing. But for the majority of people, just by making some incremental changes and having a nice sort of blurry background using some great software like Camo allows us to sort of dial in those settings and make things look good. I think Lux's environment looks really cool now. And we did that in 5-10 minutes? Pretty good.
We did. So Matt's
somebody's
saying
not
he's
seeing
not
our comments.
seeing our comments.
Okay.
So maybe need to... Matt's on LinkedIn, Neil, so maybe we need to drop in a response on LinkedIn. So I think that's why you're not seeing it, Matt.
Here, but I'll... I'll type it in somewhere. I'll just I'll put a lower third up or something.
If not, we can add that comment in later on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll make a note of you, Matt, and I'll connect to you on LinkedIn and send you the link.
Yeah.
How about that? The power of LinkedIn. See, we're building connections already, which is what it's all about.
And Saeed would move his desk, but his OCD's not going to let him do that. He needs symmetry in his life. So each to their own. So yes. From this perspective, what we're going to do next is, and thank you for your responses, everybody, we're going to go into a little session where Neil's going to talk more about the technical elements of going live on LinkedIn. So really, in
Yep.
summary, before you go live in LinkedIn, we think your cameras and your sound and your background and your lighting should be good, because you're representing yourself, you're representing the company. So why wouldn't you, with a few tweaks, just try and look a lot better? We've got a kit list, which we're going to tell you about at the end, that basically is about $300 worth of cameras and lighting and things like that, which is entry level, but will have you looking really good. So that goes along with the training course, but you can go and get the kit list for free. But Neil, I'm going to get straight over to you, and we'll do some Q&A after your session, and you can do your technical bit.
Thank you very much. It won't be too long. So as we mentioned, okay, so you're thinking about going live on LinkedIn. We've already shown how we can change a few things in Lux's environment, but let's just go back to basics a second. So what you need to do to start off and go live on LinkedIn is obviously you need to have a LinkedIn account. If you don't, then now's the time to get on board and get connected to LinkedIn. Now, there is criteria that you need. Martin mentioned it before. Back in the day, there used to be a form that you have to fill out and all that stuff. So now LinkedIn's requirement to just go live, you can still post video, you can still post text as soon as you've created your LinkedIn account. But to go live on LinkedIn, you have to have at least 150 followers. So those are people that are actually following you as a personal LinkedIn account or a brand account, company account. It doesn't really matter. The criteria is the same for everything. Now, Martin, when he created his brand account many years ago, there was no entry to get into doing live. He'd set up his account and started going live already. So that's changed as of today. Who knows what LinkedIn might do in the future? But right now you need a LinkedIn account, and that account needs to have at least 150 followers. And then obviously you need some camera and lights, and you don't need stuff to break the bank. We have in our kit list, as Martin said, a very entry-level camera. But as you've just seen with Lux's environment, he's just using his basic camera that he has on his laptop. Yes, it's a Mac laptop, but many laptops nowadays have decent cameras in them. You could even, if you wanted to, you could just use your phone to start off with, and using the Camo app can really dial in the settings of your phone. But we think having a separate camera or a camera that's already built in some respects is much easier. You might want to have your phone to sort of check things and do your email or whatever you might be doing. So it's not always tying up your phone unnecessarily. Lights can be as cheap as anything now in order to get, a decent looking lighting. You don't have to have a big lighting setup. As you saw, Lux has got a tiny little light on one side and just a repurposed ring light on the other. So again, things that don't have to break the bank. In our kit list, we also show you that. Microphones. I'm using this microphone. Martin has the same one. We recommend this microphone, which is the Elgato Wave Neo. It's a $60, $70 microphone. It's USB. It's plug and play. It comes with free software. In the course, we tell you how to set it up. It actually sounds really good for a microphone of that quality. It even has a mute button and a little red light on it to tell you that you're muted, which is useful because I often go muted without knowing what I'm doing. Also, you need software. Now, LinkedIn is a great platform for posting and everything else, but for whatever reason, it doesn't allow you to directly go live using the LinkedIn web UI. So unlike Facebook and YouTube, where you can go live on their platforms just by using your camera that's connected to your system, LinkedIn Live requires something called an encoder. It's nothing scary. It's just a simple piece of software that basically takes your camera and your microphone input and then connects it to LinkedIn and then allows you to stream. So basically, this is what you would have set up as normal. You'd have your little microphone here. You'd have your OBSBot Meet camera is what we're recommending for that. And then you would load some software called Restream Studio. We're actually using Restream right now to actually go live. And Restream Studio is that encoder that you need. The advantages of Restream Studio is the fact that you can connect your LinkedIn personal or brand channel to to Restream, and then you can simply create your event, schedule your events, as many as you want, or you can go direct live to LinkedIn just by clicking this little button here. The beauty as well of Restream is the fact that it's a multi-stream software, which means if you have multiple channels and you want to not only go live to LinkedIn, but you want to go live to YouTube, you can do that as well. So Restream Studio is a very simple platform to allow you to take in your camera, microphone and the way that you look right now, connect it to your LinkedIn personal or brand profile and stream directly. And you'll need something like this in order to connect to LinkedIn. There are other softwares out there. We've tested a few. I personally like Restream because it's pretty simple to use. You get really good results and it works really well. So that was my brief rundown of how to get connected to LinkedIn. But in the course that we have, I take you through this and Martin takes you through it in very simple steps. All right, Martin, back over to you.
So yeah, has anybody got any questions out there? And if you have, you can drop them straight into the chat and we'll attempt to answer them. But let's just quickly give people an idea of what is in the course in terms of videos and Q&A type quizzes and exercises. All of those are in the training course. It's about going on for 2 hours long in terms of the different elements, but that's all the time you're going to need to spend to learn how to look good on camera and the technical steps that you need to go through to actually go live. And we talk about all of the free software you can use. So Restream at its basic level is free. But we then also talk about the paid version of things like Restream and products like Ecamm, which is another encoder tool. And those tools let you go a little bit further once you put the paid elements on, because you can do things like add in branding and all that type of thing. So Lux has got a good question actually, Neil.
What about people who say, but I'm not a streamer? I hear that often. Well, we're on a Zoom call right now and we're actually streaming. If you've ever been on a Zoom call in your environment, whether it be your business and so on, you're actually doing a stream. That's all it is. You're just streaming out your video content and having people attend. So we're not aiming these courses at streamers. You're not a streamer. You're basically somebody who is presenting your material online and you're streaming your video out to the masses. That's not necessarily mean you're a streamer. So, but you're doing it every day in your workplace just by being on a Zoom call, as all three of us are connected now. Yes, we are streaming out live to LinkedIn, YouTube, and other destinations, but just being on a simple Zoom call is being a streamer.
And indeed a Teams call or a Skype call or FaceTime or anything like that. If you've done any of those, exactly, there is nothing stopping you pointing your camera, potentially the same camera, then that's us straight away. And Lux is saying, you were telling us off camera that you had a friend who'd recently been to the Global Canva event that was
indeed
going on.
Yeah, so Canva Day was in LA, and that even rhymes. I think it was last week, and it's just a one-day event. So similar to what Adobe put on with their Adobe sessions, Canva obviously is big in the marketplace. And what was really interesting is that there was a LinkedIn booth there, and LinkedIn were really present because obviously they are really hot right now on content creation. And basically, LinkedIn said to my colleague, all we're pushing right now on LinkedIn is video. Posting videos, live streaming videos, video. That's the main focus for 2025. Yes, they're, again, wanting you to be interactive, commenting on other people's posts and things like that, but they really are pushing video as the main mantra for 2025. You may know Martin and I have obviously been using LinkedIn for some time. We've been experimenting as well with vertical video in LinkedIn, where basically LinkedIn on certain apps had the camera video option whereby you could actually look at all the different types of vertical video that's going on there. So we've really been pushing that as well and experimenting with vertical video. Video's not going away. LinkedIn may be a little bit late to the party, but they really are pushing it now because they see the value and the engagement and the uptick with video in general.
So question.
One for you, Martin.
Question for Royce. And that is a question for me. I do quite a lot of green screen, and one of the main things that people will tell you straight away is that you need lots of lights with green screen. It's not true. You can pretty much use the same lighting setup that you have, that we have going on here at the moment. One thing I would recommend with green screen is making sure your green screen itself is well lit, so a light behind you pointing at the green screen, then one above you, probably level with the back of your chair, coming down at 45 degrees, what we call a hair light. That will give you separation between you and whatever is on your green screen. So providing you got those two and a key light, you'll be good on green screen. The other things though, which are not so obvious on green screen, people have a tendency to just go and pick up a still image of an office and then put it behind them. Now, that really is not going to look very good. It's instantaneously fake, because what you want to get is the slight bokeh effect. So if you're going to do that, here's the trick. Take that image, drop it into pretty much any package, including PowerPoint and Keynote and things like that, and you can put a 25% blur on that image and then drop it behind you again, and you will get the bokeh type effect that we've got going on here, which is the slight blur and everything focusing on us. So that's tip number one for green screen. Make sure your image is slightly blurred. Tip number two is what I tend to do, is I will actually put an animated version behind me of something, because if you just got a little bit of movement behind you, it looks more realistic. But that's probably for another lesson. But adding a bit of light and shade in the background, which is actually fake, but nobody's going to know, over the top of that image of an office, will make a huge difference. So instead of it being static, you've got a little tiny bit of movement. It could just be particles in the air, light coming through the window, something like that in your background will suddenly get people thinking, is it on green screen or not? And we could go back to something myself and Neil did, where Neil is in Portugal and I'm in Edinburgh, and we did a live on LinkedIn where everybody thought we were sitting next to one another, because we'd faked the background, but I was on green screen sitting in Edinburgh looking like I was sitting next to Neil. And the amount of comments that we got, that people just didn't believe that was the case, but that's exactly what we're doing. And we carefully did that by matching up our lighting on our faces with the background and making sure we both were the same colours on the camera and things like that. So there's a lot that you can do with green screen, but we ought to get to that a bit later, because I can see we're starting to run out of time, and we need to get to the bit where we talk about links and where to get stuff. So we're not quite there with the training course, because each time we're about to launch, we suddenly think, oh, how about that? That's another bit that we've missed out. And for once, we've forgotten this time to put in any camera tips for ladies. And we suddenly realised that perhaps myself and Neil weren't qualified to talk about hair and makeup and things like that. So actually we've reached out to a few of our friends, and they are going to do some little videos that we're going to add in, so that we're covering everybody that we can think of. So there'll be a good half a dozen different styles of background and different people appearing for you to have a look at and say, oh, that's the person I align with most. But right now, if you wish, you can go and get this kit list. Neil's been talking about the kit here. This kit list, if you scan the QR code or go through to the website, which is streamprofiles.selfie.store, look for the little thumbnail, which is myself and Neil on that thumbnail next to the booklet. Then you can go download this booklet for free. It also includes 4 or 5 of those little templates for lining yourself up on the screen as well, and everything that you need to go live in terms of Amazon links, and all of the information is available there. So to get hold of that, scan the QR code or go to the website listed there. Just flick on down till you see that kit list button, and you can go down the kit list for free. You do have to go through the shopping cart experience, so you will need to put in your email, and you are opting into our email list, but you won't be asked for a credit card. Just add 0 in when it says cost. You just put a 0 in the box, and that will get you onto our mailing list. If you don't want the kit list, there's also the ability to just sign up to be first to be notified about the training course when it arrives, and that should be the first week in May, I believe.
Yep, that's the plan. And for people who couldn't find the links before for various things, then the links to Camo and all the software and things we've talked about today are also included in that kit list. So don't forget to go and grab that when you can.
Kit list. Right. And
there
if
you
Lux
go.
is ready.
Lux did have a quick question, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just answer his question. So, or I can answer the question. So Lux's question is, if you can find it.
Well, let's bring Lux back on.
Let's bring him on.
We'll bring him on anyway. So
here he is.
You can just ask us a question now.
Can I ask you a question? Yes. So you had that template, and I put my face right in the middle, and I was just fidgeting as you were speaking. And do I always have to be in the middle, or can one move to the side like this? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely you can. I mean, if, for instance, you can move to the side, and we do that. Myself and Neil have got some called live motion feature, which will shift us to one side, and we'd typically do that when we were dropping in some bullet points or something similar to one side of us, and then we would maybe shift back again. And we can do that either using positioning on the screen within one of the tools, or you can have what we call a PTZ camera. And the PTZ camera is pan, tilt and zoom, and will follow you around the room, so you could actually move. So you need to be careful with that, what you want it to do. You need to tell it the right instructions, because otherwise you'll try and move to one side and it will keep centering you. So you don't have to be in the middle, but obviously make sure you are using the space accordingly would be the best view.
I think just to add to that as well, the rule of thirds is there for a reason, and the rule of thirds doesn't mean that you have to sit in the middle. At any intersection where I don't know if you can bring up that template again, Martin, real quick, where we had before. So where we've added that specifically for somebody being in the center, the rule of thirds dictates that if the subject is on any one of those center point intersections between the crosses, then that's fine. And that's where your eye would go naturally as well. So, being in the corner there, for example, is fine, or the other side. So that's why the rule of thirds exists in photography, and it's just where it's more pleasing to look at. And as Martin said, if you've got now stuff that you want to talk about and, bullet points coming up on the left-hand side, then there's nothing stopping you now in that position to bring up some nice overlays to reinforce your message. It's just a more natural thing if you're looking in the center, specifically when you're doing sort of a talking head type shot. But those are the rules just to look for.
Fantastic. And this grid and rule of thirds diagram is part of the kit list you said as well, right?
Yeah. So I think there's 5 different ones, because it's going to change depending on whether you are wide aspect ratio, classic aspect, or square, or a circle. So they're all in there. One of the ones with a circle, people quite often appear in a circle while they're on a PowerPoint or something like that, and there's a tendency for them to suddenly have their head like this in the circle, which just looks ridiculous. So you need the rule of thirds, even if you're in a circle as well. You don't really want to be a giant circle with a couple of eyes in it, so you want your shoulders in there. And the rule of thirds also, if you notice, it's bringing in our sort of hands and things just at the bottom of the screen, so a lot of people do have the tendency to be dropped down, but it's much better to just have your shoulders and like just at the top of your chest trunk area on the screen. It's just a lot more natural. And if you are moving your hands about, which especially if you're an Italian, you're going to be doing that. So yeah, those sort of things make a big difference. So yeah, Mamma Mia.
Yeah, gesture all the time, exactly.
Gesture.
Just like The Godfather.
So we know we're coming to the end of the time, and it's been lovely to be here. But Lux, I think you've got a couple of announcements about things which are up and coming.
Yes, sir. Thank you, first of all. This was a fantastic session. And I have to tell you something. Something changed between when you told me about the lights and the basic things I need to get ready for today's session and now. And what that is I had a LinkedIn Live session scheduled for next week. We're doing these sessions every week, right? But we had a gap next week. And in a moment of foolishness a couple of weeks ago, I said, I'll fill in that gap. And then I said, no, I don't know what I was thinking. Hide that event. And then yesterday, after you told me what kind of stuff is possible just with a simple light and that $20 light that you made Jeff Bezos richer by. It's just amazing. So I actually went back to the team and said, "Hey, I'll actually do that session next week." So I'm doing a session next week on LinkedIn Live, which will be my first solo session on LinkedIn Live, and thank you for helping
Cool.
me do that.
You're more than welcome.
And something you said is very, very powerful, which is that if you're on Zoom or on Teams or Google Meet, you're already live, you're already streaming. It's just that you have this mental block about YouTube and Twitch and LinkedIn being these streaming platforms, but it's exactly the same as, I mean, right now we're on Zoom and that's going out to LinkedIn Live, right? It makes it much easier. So folks, a lot of interesting sessions like this every week. I'm, again, just quick introduction. I'm a co-founder at StreamAlive, and we love hosting sessions like these where we educate, entertain, and get the audience into the conversation as well. So like I said, I'm going to be doing one next week, and then after that, every week we have a lot of other interesting sessions, one on the art of prompting, one on systems thinking, something on storytelling for businesses, and hopefully we'll have Neil and Martin again after they've launched the course in May, coming back to tell us a few more tips as well. But follow these, sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. Best way to sign up for the events is go to streamalive.com, and there's a community tab on the top right, and that links directly to all our upcoming events, and hope to see you in future events as well. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Martin,
Yeah,
Neil, thanks a bunch.
I think we're just gonna go to the outro because we're 3 minutes over, and that's quite good by our standards. So cheerio from Edinburgh, everybody.
Cheerio from Portugal, and thank you very much, Lux, for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you, Ian.
And see you next time, folks.